The Eagles make a blockbuster trade during their bye week as they trade for Michael Carter. Get excited. How could you not be? Yeah, the Eagles trade John Metchie in a 2027 6th-round pick for Michael Carter and a 2027 7th-round pick. Essentially just trading a spot in a wide receiver for a more position of need right now in cornerback. I think anyone that's watched the Eagles this season would agree that, yeah, cornerback is a spot that they need some help in. It hasn't been great. They're getting Bennett back. He was, I believe, activated from the IR, so he should be back after the bye week, and he's at least practicing. But still, they haven't filled the void that was left when Darius Slay was let go and went to Pittsburgh. And I think you've seen that a little bit with the play from Quinyon Mitchell this year. Like, he hasn't been bad by any stretch of the means. I mean, the one week he was the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. He's been really good. I just have noticed this season, as opposed to last, he's getting burnt a little bit more. There are more plays where you go, oh, like he got away with one because he was, holding on to a shirt or a jersey or something like that. And I think that is a byproduct of the fact that they don't really have a cornerback on the outside. Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo just haven't really been it. They haven't been horrible necessarily, but they just haven't been it. So this trade is a good spot to up the depth, I guess. I mean, John Metchie, it's amazing. As soon as I start doing these videos, my dogs are like, let me walk around. Let me start eating food. Let me drink water. The John Metchie trade to me didn't make a lot of sense at the moment. It was very similar in the Jahan Dotson deal a year prior, where it's like you just looked at the roster, and I didn't think they really had a hole at wide receiver, especially because of the fact that they had Jahan Dotson. But either way, the Eagles thought that they could get a reclamation project in John Metchie. They didn't give up a lot for him, but as Zach Berman pointed out on his Twitter account at ZBerm, that they thought that John Metchie could possibly be their fourth wide receiver, but Darius Cooper, the undrafted free agent, kind of solidified himself in that spot. So because of that, it left John Metchie a man without an island. I'll be fully transparent here. I forgot John Metchie was on the team. Like, fully forgot he was on the team. So I don't have any problem with this move because you're trading a guy in John Metchie who didn't seem to really have a future here for a cornerback that a couple years ago was like a diamond in the rough by the Jets. I mean, so much so that they gave him a pretty nice contract extension. So if he can come in and he can, play the slot, which is what primarily he was doing with the New York Giants, and you're going to be able to move Cooper DeJean to the outside, I think that's going to benefit a lot of people. It's worth mentioning that Joe Douglas, who is working with the Eagles right now, was the guy that drafted Michael Carter in the draft, so there's obviously familiarity there. But when I had Zach Berman on a couple weeks ago, one of the things he brought up is like, just put your guys in the best position, meaning don't just put Cooper DeJean in the slot because that's what you've been doing. If Cooper DeJean can cover on the outside in the slot and you have a really good wide receiver on the outside, put him on that wide receiver. This might be able to give you the luxury of doing that, of moving some guys around, of filling some voids, and not just having Cooper DeJean in the slot because that's just what you've been doing since you drafted him. You might be able to actually fill that void that I talked about on the outside with Cooper DeJean, and then you just fill the slot. I do think when you find a really good slot cornerback, it's definitely worth keeping. And in a weird way, I feel like it's easier to find like the guys on the outside that have failed. Sometimes they go on the inside and they shine. And Avonte Maddox is a prime example of that. Michael Carter, as I said, was really, really good slot cornerback with the Jets until injuries kind of derailed him there for a bit. But I think this move is a low-risk, high-reward move for a team that didn't have a ton of depth at that spot. And because of the way that their offense is structured, if an A.J. Brown, we just saw it, right? Like, A.J. Brown goes down, he's out for a week, and the offense explodes. I'm not saying that you don't need A.J. Brown. It's like, you watched the game the other day, and you're like, imagine if A.J. Brown was on the field, how much of a bloodbath it would be. But I think this offense can survive without a John Metchie. And if A.J. Brown were to miss some time, or if Devontae Smith were to miss some time, at this point I do have faith in Jahan Dotson to be able to fill the void there for a little bit until they come back healthy. Whereas cornerback, I don't think anybody's comfortable, and I think that was a position where we looked at going into the trade deadline as like, well, they might have to address it. I guess they just did. Now this is going to afford them the luxury of just trading for a defensive end, which is another position of need. They're going to get Nolan Smith back. Brandon Graham will be making his debut after the bye week, although you have to question how much does he have left in the tank. How much of the Brandon Graham signing was just simply getting a good guy back in the locker room who can keep things light, keep things jovial. And yeah, he can get in there and stop the run a little bit, but I'm not banking on like 6 sacks from BG. He's going to be fresh for sure, but you can't really bank on the production level coming in being at a high one. I think he's a rotational defensive end. I think he would tell you that. So even though he's coming back, I just don't view him as like that's the answer to the pass rush that has been lacking. Although last week they got after Jackson Dart. They did a really good job of getting after Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart did a really good job of evading the tacklers. It leads me to believe like Jackson Dart's going to be a problem in this league for a while once he gets some legit weapons in there. He did all that without Malik Neighbors and stuff and a patchwork offensive line. But the reality is they're not going to trade for guards. They're not going to trade for an offensive lineman at the deadline. You just don't really see it because the offensive line is such a cohesive unit and they have to work together and build that chemistry. So at this point, Tyler Steen is what we have. And the other position we need is defensive end. So I think when you went into the trade deadline or when you're going into the trade deadline, I think the 3 positions you looked at for the Birds that they could improve upon were cornerback, defensive end, and offensive line. And as I just pointed out, you're not going to trade for an offensive lineman. Cornerback they just traded for, and defensive end would be the last piece that you can go, okay, we can probably get a pretty good player there for pretty cheap because at that point teams are kind of just looking to unload for a 4th or 5th round pick. Got to remember a couple of years ago they traded for Robert Quinn, former 16 sack guy, and they traded a 4th round pick for him. And that didn't work out, but as I will point out till I'm blue in the face, that didn't work out, but that was the year that they had Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, and none of the defensive players knew what they were doing that year. So I can't really blame him. I believe that was the year. I know that was the Kevin Byard year, but I think that was the Robert Quinn year. But hey, you know what? Hey, 4th, 5th round pick, you're going to get those, and you can easily get those back. So I like the move, but it's not like I'm sitting here going like Super Bowl. I still think they're a really, really good football team. They're 5-2. No, they're 6-2. I'm all over the place today. Hit thumbs down for that. They're 6-2. They, I think at this point, have pretty much locked up the division. It's not official, obviously. They haven't clinched it, but the next best team is 3-4-1, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. You need an epic collapse. I don't see it coming. The Eagles looked really, really good heading into the bye week, and I think that's worth mentioning, that they can build upon that and feel good about themselves going into the bye week. So, but yeah, this was, I think, the first move that the Eagles have made, but I don't think it'll be the last move. I think you'll see a bigger move and more of a name recognition move. I don't see it being a Jannard Avery move, but I see that this move is kind of the Jannard Avery move, if you will. This move is that low-risk, high-reward move, whereas the bigger move for the veteran, proven commodity who just needs a change of scenery, I think that move is coming. Now is the part where I ask you guys to subscribe. Hit thumbs up, smash the thumbs down button if you thought this sucked, but I need subscribers, so please subscribe so I can continue to feed my dog over there who decided he wasn't going to eat all day and now he's looking at me like, me? You're the one filming on my dinner time. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say. Go Birds.